Every culture has their myths and legends. We all idealize a moment in time as magical or special. In America, that time is our teens. Since the end of the Second World War, when America as a country finally grew up and assumed the responsibility of worldwide defender of democracy, we began to idealize high school. The late 40s and 50s brought an unprecedented level of prosperity and happiness unequaled before or since. In Truman and Eisenhower's America, everything projected an almost magical aura. It was a fantasy world of pretty picket fences, cherry-red cars, and sock hops. It had its own lingo, its own heroes, and its own dreams. That's the world James Hurley and Donna Hayward were rudely ejected from when Laura Palmer died. Americans have been trying to recapture the magic of the 50s through nostalgia almost since the decade ended. And we've never given up the dream of a 1950s teen utopia. Twin Peaks and another work by David Lynch, Blue Velvet, seem to take place outside of time. In another American fairy tale, like Wild at Heart, the setting, the mood, and the characters can be defined by nostalgic references, flashbulbs of childhood feelings about the world in the Eisenhower era.
He saw Sailor and Lula a bit like Elvis in Marilyn Monroe, these very American icons.
Elvis became a key to Nick. Nick is more than that, for sure, but that was a key element. Bubblegum was a key element to Lula, for some reason. So there's Elvis and Bubblegum going down the road. Somehow, the Wizard of Oz started walking into Wild at Heart.
Toto.
The Wicked Witch.
Emerald City.
Yellow Brick Road.
The Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, Wild at Heart. It just came in.
The only words we ever used in his direction of us were things like cotton candy, Jupiter, lemonade, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis, more Marilyn, more sexy, more dumb.
James Hurley is a 16-year-old high school student in the town of Twin Peaks. He's the nephew of gas station owner Ed Hurley. James is a character torn straight from the 50s movie scene. A kid with a tough biker exterior but a gentle soul on the inside. James is bursting with emotions, filled with love, anger, rebellion, and despair magnified many times. James never struck me as being all that badass. He's more of a teen movie version of a biker. Not a scary loner who deals drugs and attacks people. He's got a tough exterior with a good heart. That doesn't mean he's weak anything. He's willing to fight and he gets angry sometimes. But overall, he's a good guy. Another James, James Dean, played one of the most iconic characters in American history in the film Rebel Without a Cause. The film stars Dean as a teenage hoodlum suffocating in the stifling grip of the 1950s. The adults of that era had grown up with 15 long years of national tragedy. From the beginning of the Great Depression to the end of the Second World War, stability and safety were distant dreams. So for the next 15 years, starting in 1945, Americans made a hermetically sealed bubble for them to feel good in. Pour in the added terror of possible nuclear annihilation, and you have the perfect recipe for a bubbling cauldron of repression. It was a preternaturally, almost eerily safe and contained world. They moved out of the grimness of the tenement cities and into the peace and pleasantness of suburbia. As time dragged on, this ultra-clean, overly calm, almost sedate world took its toll on American youth. Some of them revolted against the oppressive conformity and burst out with an explosive desire to be free. The chaos of feelings and emotions ran riot in the new rock and roll music of the day. Many Lynch films show disillusionment with the halcyon days of the 50s into the real frightening world of adulthood. Eventually, that chaos generated the wild changes of the counterculture of the 60s. But that was a long way off in an unknown future for the kids of the 50s. James Dean unleashed a volcanic burst of passion, emotion, and ultimately self-destruction to rail and riot against the hated norms of the day. It was a fundamental piece of American cinema and the attitudes of rebellion to authority and forging your own identity in your teens against society's wishes. Whatever the cost, it's still with us today, 60 years later. Is it part of human evolution to resist normalcy, to make the sleeper awaken or something dies inside of us, as was said in another David Lynch movie, Dune? James Dean and James Hurley are both exploding with emotion against the ugliness, the pettiness, the control, and the tragedies around them. For men especially, you had to restrain your feelings. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the most important cultural icon of the era was someone who embodied revolt against the norm. So a teenager who is wildly emotional and passionate to a fault has become a powerful symbol for a time period of the ultimate restraint and repression of feeling. James Hurley fits right into that world, the teenage years when you feel so many things for the first time and they're all the stronger for it. He just wants to get on his bike and ride, be free and escape somewhere that no one can touch him. He also creates, in a way similar to James Dean, a kind of domestic situation with three people: himself, Donna Hayward, and Maddy Ferguson. Just like James was trying to create a sort of domestic world with himself, his friend, and his girlfriend in the movie Rebel Without a Cause. Donna Hayward is a 17-year-old high school student who goes to school with Laura Palmer and James Hurley. Donna and Laura have been friends since they were children. It was a treasured part of life for both of them. They each had a close confidant they could talk to about anything.
Donna came over to see Laura. Do you know what they did? It was late. We'd made popcorn. And they made this very serious promise to each other to be best friends forever. I think it was a kind of bond against dying.
They built a sturdy rock to weather life's troubles. Their friendship had a kind of shining innocence and perfection, too perfect to be real. But it was real in the context of the show. It shows a perfect nostalgia looking back at childhood, how you might imagine you and your best friend together against the world. Those kind of magical moments of impossible goodness are some of the most beautiful parts of the show. Donna is an exceptionally bright girl, overflowing with academic achievements. Her intellect is obvious, being the daughter of a doctor, and it's the first thing I think of when I see her. She seems intelligent and capable beyond her years, and her parents treat her with complete trust. Even when she disobeys them, her father won't punish her. She's so totally responsible he knows she wouldn't have done anything frivolously or foolishly. Her relationship with her mother is also touching. Donna is so mature and clever they speak to each other about everything like adults. There's no hint of patronizing her. Donna is too advanced for that, despite being a teenager. The Hayward family seems upper middle class, pleasant and proper. They even have a delightful sequence where the whole Hayward clan is gathered together with the Palmers for a celebration. The food looks incredible, the dinner table is perfectly set, pretty dresses are worn by the family. It's an elegant middle-class dream home, much like the Palmers. Even though she is, like Laura, quite intelligent, unlike Laura, Donna is not experienced in love. Donna is somewhat in awe of Laura's sexual experience and skill with boys. Laura is confident and forward, while Donna is shy and withdrawn. Multiple times in the show, Donna attempts to attune herself in some way with Laura's sense of style and become like her. In a sequence to be repeated much later with much darker undertones, Donna and Laura at age 13 meet up with older boys.
I was about 13 years old. Me and Laura put on our tightest, shortest skirts. Too tight. We were going to the roadhouse to meet boys. They're about 20 years old, and they're nice to us. And they make us feel like we're older. Rick asks if we want to go party. And Laura says yes. And all of a sudden I feel this knot building up in my stomach. But when Laura gets in the truck with Rick, I go anyway. There's a stream in the woods. Laura starts to dance around the boys. So I say, let's go skinny dipping. We take off our clothes. I know the boys are watching. Laura starts to kiss Josh and Rick. I don't know what to do. So I swim away. Tim swims up to me. He kisses my hand. And then me. I can still feel that kiss. My heart jumps. I never saw him again. That was the first time I ever fell in love.
That was a great moment and one of my favorites on the show. Such a perfect snippet of a magical time in Donna's life. When Laura swam away from her, metaphorically as well as literally. Laura went down a certain road towards early adulthood, and Donna pushed away, unwilling to take that step. It seems to have lingered in Donna's mind as the moment when Laura entered a place she couldn't go, the first split that led to Laura having a secret life that Donna couldn't see and desperately wanted access to. The next time Donna really knew how severe Laura's differences were, it would be the morning after Laura's death. Donna has a weird, hot and cold attitude towards her best friend. She's drawn toward Laura's sexual power and confidence, sometimes successfully emulating it. In a racy scene, Donna dresses up in Laura's sunglasses. They give her the sexual power and confidence to be vampy and seductive. She starts smoking and does some interesting things with James.
Get out soon, James.
Yet she could cool just as quickly and rants and raves in Laura's grave about her lifestyle and why everything turned out the way it did.
I wanted so much to be like you, Laura. To have your strength and your courage. But look what it did. Look what it did to you. As much as I love you, Laura, most of the time we were trying to solve your problems. And you know what? We still are. Not mine or James or Maddy's, yours. You're dead, Laura, but your problems keep hanging around. It's almost like they didn't bury you deep enough.
Laura was seductive and repellent to Donna. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too, to be sexual, forward, and dangerous with strangers and drugs without any negative side effects. She wears the sunglasses on another key occasion, several episodes later. Donna unwittingly wears them in the presence of Laura's psychotic killer, Bob. Bob is inflamed not with passion but hatred and anger. Anyone that even resembles Laura can provoke him into a murderous rage. It's an interesting counterpoint showing how powerful Laura's sexuality is with different men. On one side of the coin, James, who is aroused and excited by her, but on the other side is the ferocious violence from a dangerous man like Bob. Donna sees both sides of that power and how alluring and frightening it was. In the film Fire Walk with Me, we get to see James and Donna's complicated relationship with Laura Palmer. Laura was the homecoming queen who was beloved by the town far beyond her considerable talents and abilities. Laura was some kind of symbol of innocence and perfection that the whole town cherished. Underneath the shining facade, however, darkness was lurking. Laura was using hard drugs, engaging in risky sexual behaviors, and suffering terrible abuse. James and Donna were aware that something was wrong, but no matter how hard they tried to pry open Laura's secrets, they only saw glimpses of what was really happening. Laura was officially dating the town football champ, Bobby Briggs, but behind his back she was seeing James. We don't know much about how they first met or how they fell for each other, and we only have snippets of their relationship discussed on the show. Laura didn't really have any feelings for Bobby and merely used him as a source for drugs. But James was someone she was truly in love with. James was the person she could go to feel happy and free. She seemed truly madly in love in a syrupy, sappy way.
James, guess why I'm so happy today?
Because your skin is so soft and you smell so good?
No.
Why?
Because I really believe that you love me. Now my heart belongs to you.
At first, James was a positive influence on her, persuading her to stop using drugs and perhaps avoiding the prostitution she had been engaged in. But James watched aghast as the purest teenage love was slipping away from him. Laura in the daytime world of picket fences and milk and cookies was sweet and kind. At night, Laura changed. She became sick of James's sweetness, his gentleness, and his ignorance. Like many abuse victims, she decided to self-medicate with self-destruction. The danger was alluring, it felt real. She became numb to everything else and sought pain like someone who cuts themselves to feel something, anything than the horror of knowing the truth about her abuse.
Hey, what's up, Doc? It's Laura, in case you haven't guessed. It's Thursday the 23rd, and I'm so bored. Actually, I'm in kind of a weird mood. God, James is sweet, but he's so dumb. And right now, I can only take so much of sweet.
Laura was more experienced, more worldly, and more broken down by life. Laura wanted excitement. She craved sexual danger and drugs. Months passed as they dated and Laura's commitment began to fade. She was lost in a nightmare, saw visions of evil spirits, and continuing suffering evil, ugly abuse. After only a short, intense time together, Laura returned to her dark ways and set herself up for her own demise. The drugs and rough sex with dangerous men returned. While Laura was still using drugs, she would apparently say strange, nonsensical things. One of those things scared James and stuck with him for a long time.
I never put it together until I heard the tape where she says this guy can really light my fire. Well, I remember this one night when we first started seeing each other. She was still doing drugs then. Well, we were in the woods, and she started saying this scary poem over and over about fire. And then she said, "Would you like to play with fire, little boy? Would you like to play with Bob?" would you like to play with Bob?
What did she mean by that?
I don't know. Laura said a lot of nutty stuff. Half the time, it just went right by you. This stuck, though.
The dark creature Bob wanted to crawl inside new hosts. Like a parasite, he tore his way in, drained everything out of Leland Palmer, and sought a new victim in Laura. Laura knew that someday if Bob possessed her, she would be forced to manipulate and harm James. She was already drawing Bobby Briggs into a life of drug dealing and murder. Laura knew that if the relationship between them continued, James would get closer and closer to Bob, and he might be killed or be forced to do evil. She decided at the last moment to distance herself from James, tear his heart in two, and cast him aside, thus saving his life from Bob's wrath. James didn't know this at the time. All he felt was the furnace-like heat of teenage passion being stripped away from him. Donna also had a narrow escape from Laura's world. Before her death, Laura reluctantly dragged Donna into her orbit of sex and drugs, much as she was doing with James and Bobby. In a pivotal moment, Laura returns to prostitution and wild parties, and to her horror, Donna finds her and joins her. Much like the time they were children of 13 playing at being women, Laura meets up with two older men to sell her body to them. Surprisingly, Donna joins them and asks to participate. Why does Donna want this? Does she comprehend what's going on? That she's a teenager who would be having sex for money? Does she care? It seems like Donna is engaging in this behavior for Laura's sake. The men don't really have anything to do with this. They're just objects that could be switched out. She can't allow her friend to do these things alone, so Donna needs to be as wild as she is. They pledge to be together forever against everything. It's a moment between her and Laura, not Donna and these men. Donna and Laura meet up at a hidden club, consume drugs, and come close to sex with the men. But Laura can't stand to see Donna's innocence stripped away and eventually gets her out of there. The tipping point came when she saw Donna wearing Laura's sweater. In her drugged-up haze, she realized visually that Donna was becoming her. Bob's unholy task of forcing people into corruption and moral degradation was coming true. Both James and Donna came close to suffering because of their relationship with the homecoming queen. But at the last moment they were saved because Laura bravely chose to go it alone against the world. Both James and Donna try to get close to their friend and find out why she was troubled, as Donna puts it. But both are kept away by the fortress Dr. Jacoby says she erected around herself. That impotence to aid their friend in her most dire need likely was the emotional power to start their role in the series as amateur detectives. They tried but failed to help their friend avoid her fate. Now that she's gone, they'll do anything to help her. It must have been heartbreaking and beyond painful for James and Donna to sit and watch this happen. To be witness to their best friend and lover's agonizing trauma and eventual death while they could do nothing to help. A major part of the series for half its runtime is James and Donna carrying out an amateur investigation into their friend's death. Being Laura's best friend, Donna was allowed into the secret of her relationship with James. The three went out for a picnic together and engaged in playful teenage fun. Laura seemed to notice that James and Donna were slowly falling in love with each other. The pilot and the first few episodes of Season 1 are a tender love story with James and Donna simultaneously in the depths of despair and the heights of romance.
Mom, it's so strange. I know I should be sad, and I am. Part of me is. But it's like I'm having the most beautiful dream and the most terrible nightmare all at once.
Father said you went out last night to meet a boy named James Hurley. Does this have anything to do with him?
Can this be between you and me?
Of course it can.
James and Laura were seeing each other the last 2 months. I was the only one who knew about it. Mom, James was so good for her. You don't know how troubled Laura was. Last night I had to see him. We were the two closest people in the world to her. But I feel so bad now.
My angel.
Because we realized that all this time, we were the ones falling in love.
Like Jeffrey Beaumont and Sandy in Blue Velvet, the two young people set out to uncover the dark mysteries of their town. Unlike Jeffrey, who was guided by his own curiosity and voyeurism, James and Donna have a powerful inner motive to find the killer. In the first season of Twin Peaks, the Hayward-Hurley investigation squad makes only marginal progress toward finding Laura's murderer. Much of what they do in the first season is a red herring. rectified with more important revelations in Season 2. The pilot introduces an unnecessary plot device in the form of a heart necklace that James and Donna conceal. The teens find secret tapes of Laura speaking to Jacoby. They learn quite a bit about the lead-up to Laura's death. The climax of Season 1 show the junior detectives break into Jacoby's office, a subplot that means very little because Jacoby didn't have anything to do with Laura's death. But their time is hardly wasted. James and Donna learn important facts about Laura's life, her feelings, and her pre-death spiral into despair. It lets both of them come to terms with Laura's state of mind prior to her murder. They begin to understand that Laura placed herself into dangerous circumstances, and get a sense of why she needed risky behavior to feel good. Things get more serious for the crew in Season 2. They begin making real progress into learning about Laura Palmer's murder. It begins almost immediately when Donna is contacted by a man named Harold Smith. Harold is one of the best characters on the show. He is a severe agoraphobic, totally unable to leave his house without collapsing into fits. Harold sends Donna a note telling her to investigate the Meals on Wheels program. The Meals on Wheels thing was the throwaway line said about Laura in the pilot episode to make her seem more generous and perfect, but they resurrected it for this as a perfect in for a new character and scene. I give the show a lot of flack for making stupid decisions around plot holes and irrelevant subplots, but Meals on Wheels is a perfect example of taking a minor throwaway line in Season 1, like Leo needs a new pair of boots, and spinning it into an interesting, important event. Just like they took with the necklace, there was a beautiful moment with Dr. Jacoby describing that necklace and what it meant to him and to Laura and to everyone that showed a lot of emotional power to it. Even though ultimately finding the necklace wasn't important for the mission, it was important to learn more about Laura. Harold's home is a tiny, claustrophobic, and sealed place, protected, quiet, and outside the normal hustle and bustle of life. He is also a horticulturalist and grows orchids in his home, so he has to keep the temperature very warm and muggy. Everything inside feels safe, welcoming, and protected from the outer world. Donna learns that Harold has a secret diary kept by Laura Palmer. Within the diary are Laura's secret thoughts and revelations about her abuse. Harold won't release the diary from his home, so Donna comes up with a strategy to steal it while he's distracted. Unfortunately, the theft does not succeed, and Harold threatens to harm them, quite unconvincingly, I might add. In a fit of rage, Harold decides he and his world have become contaminated beyond purification. He tears apart the diary, destroys his home, and kills himself. This is twice now that the junior detectives have inadvertently harmed another person. Their tricking of Dr. Jacoby into leaving his office led to his being violently beaten for some reason. And now they're meddling in the affairs of a severely mentally ill man, and it's led to his death. Exploiting a vulnerable person and shattering the safety he's built for himself, pushing him to suicide, is pretty horrifying. I'm sorry, but the kids are at least partially responsible for Harold's death here. Before trying to steal the book, Donna also cruelly takes advantage of Harold's trust and tries to walk out of his house with it. Donna acts very out of character in a cruel and taunting manner here. She seems pretty reckless in her dealings with Harold. She never quite knows or cares how serious her violations of his home and trust are. Harold could only survive as a secret friend in his private world, which Laura understood. Donna never grasped that and pushed him down a dark road.
You heard about Harold Smith?
Yeah. It's not anybody's fault. He was a sick man.
I think he was hurt inside in a way I couldn't figure out.
Oh really? You mean Donna, the great and magnificent, couldn't figure out something in the world? How shocking this teenager is unable to solve the mysteries of mental illness. I don't want to make Harold seem like an angel. He was an adult with severe problems who should have known better about the diary. I mean, who is he to say there's nothing of interest to the police in there? He could have directly contributed to Bob's further victims by not turning in that info sooner. Much of this segment, though excellent, doesn't make a whole lot of practical sense. As soon as Donna learned of the secret diary, she should have told the police. They would have showed up and taken it. Harold couldn't stop them. Bada bing, bada boom. Done. Anyhow, this meddling is actually vital to the solving of Laura's murder. The secret diary is eventually discovered, pieced together, and enough of it has survived to give the last few important clues Agent Cooper needs to crack the case. So for all the damage they cause, all the false leads James and Donna followed, despite multiple warnings from the police to stop their investigation, it was the last stone Cooper needed on the path to cracking the case. Their time wasn't wasted. They were needed on the quest to stop Laura's killer. During all this time, we also get a window in James and Donna's budding relationship. In the first season, while wrestling with grief and shock over Laura's murder, the two realize they have feelings for each other. Love was probably blossoming between them long before Laura's death. As Laura slipped away from both of them, they fell for each other. They start dating in a delightful retro 50s kind of way. They go on a very prim and proper date at Donna's house in Season 1 with her parents present. It's an adorable moment between the two as they talk furtively on the couch after Donna's parents go to bed for the evening. The two found a little bit of heaven in midst of the hell they went through, to quote Pete Martell. Their story is one of hushed conversations, secret meetings, and deep confusion that something so wonderful could be born after such a dark event as a murder. But all is not well for Donna and James with the introduction of a third character, Madeline Ferguson. Maddy is Laura Palmer's cousin and is played by Cheryl Lee, who also played Laura. Yeah, that's the kind of show this is. Maddy comes to Twin Peaks for Laura's funeral and ends up staying to comfort her aunt and uncle. She befriends James and Donna and helps them investigate Laura's death. At first, Maddy is a welcome addition to the team. It's part of the magic of the show when the three of them stand in silent, well-appointed suburban homes, talking about the darkness swallowing up their friend Laura. I also love the scenes here where Donna and Maddy are whispering next to each other. It's got a perfect charm to it. Maddy is also a major roadblock in James and Donna's relationship. Since she's played by the same actress, Maddy looks exactly like Laura, only with different hair. James begins to have a tough time distinguishing the two and begins to transfer his feelings for Laura onto Maddy. James is still struggling with loss and comes closer and closer to Maddy, infuriating Donna. One of the best scenes on the show is when the three of them are sitting peacefully in the pleasantly appointed Palmer home at night. They've set up a guitar and microphone and record a song together. In that one sequence we run the gamut of feelings, the tenderness of young love, gooey nostalgia for a simpler time in America's past, heartache and confusion over feelings they're not yet ready to understand. It's a perfect Twin Peaks moment. Tragically, this budding trio is shredded when Madeline is brutally killed by Bob, the show's fearsome spirit creature. After Madeline's death comes one of the best moments in the show. If not my absolute favorite, then certainly the most emotionally powerful. Donna has just learned that Maddy has died. Just a few weeks after her best friend's death, another person has been brutally ripped from her life. The song Questions in a World of Blue, with the angelic voice of Julie Cruz and overwhelming waves of synth electronica pour over the soundtrack. Donna is just walking.
What's wrong?
It's Maddy.
What about her?
She's dead. It was the same killer, the same one who killed Laura.
We could have helped her.
How?
We could have helped her.
How?
I don't know. I gotta go.
James, it's not our fault. Don't leave. James, don't leave me!
I think we've all had moments like that in our lives where we've felt something so strongly, so overwhelming, we just don't know what to do. Our minds, our thoughts, everything has been overpowered. All Donna can think to do is walk, to do anything to stop those feelings, to stop it all from rushing through us like an unstoppable tidal wave. She meets James in the woods and breaks the news to him. James has also been on the edge for weeks, and it's all too much for him. Too much suffering, too much pain, and he gets on his bike and rides away, leaving Donna in tears. Really, this is the only way a wild 50s teenage romance could end. It's a climax of emotion. It's also the climax of these two character stories. Afterwards, the James-Donna world crumbles into irrelevancy. A terrible neglect was shown for both characters after this point, especially considering the vital importance they held in the first half of the series. A common theme is emerging in these videos. The huge tree hole between solving Laura's murder in episode 16 and roughly when the Wyndham Earl storyline ramps up in episode 23. That's a long time to be fapping about with no direction or course. And tragically, both James and Donna's relevance to the series died as soon as Laura's killer is captured and exposed. Their entire plotline was about dealing with the aftermath of Laura's death and starting their budding relationship. The police department always has a reason to be active and participating in the goings-on of the town, while criminals or shady people like Ben Horn or Bobby Briggs will always have schemes or plots to work on. But good, honest high schoolers like James and Donna were stripped of their reason to investigate and meandered off into silly side events. Shortly after James leaves Twin Peaks, he wanders into another rural Washington town. There he involves himself in one of the most universally loathed parts of the show. I'm sure there are some fans that like that stuff, but most people I've come across hate it just like I do. While alone, friendless, and purposeless, James gets a job fixing cars for a wealthy local businesswoman named Evelyn. Evelyn is much older than James, married, and seems sent direct from a femme fatale casting call. Many episodes pass as she draws James into a web of deceit and seduction, culminating in framing him for murder. Why did this need to take place in another town, exactly? James sleeping with Evelyn is also somewhat disturbing. Not just because he's still underage, but because he callously cheats on Donna. Donna later passes it off at James being torn up inside because of the murders, but it still seems pretty wrong and inexcusable to me. And to be fair, Donna did sorta kinda have some sort of affair starting with Harold Smith, but it never became really physical. James, as I mentioned, isn't the brightest bulb and falls for this ruse, and is almost sent up the river by Evelyn and her evil lover. But Evelyn has a change of heart, kills her lover instead of James, and he finds his way out of the situation with Donna's help. My appreciation for this segment isn't helped by the fact that it culminates in, as I mentioned in my video, Why Twin Peaks Was Cancelled, easily the worst episode of the series. It was directed by Diane Keaton with almost no skill at the Lynch Frost weirdness that made the show so enjoyable. And I really loved Diane Keaton. It felt more like a parody of Twin Peaks, though, making fun of the absurd situations and characters, like they did in an SNL sketch at the time. It's just not quite right. After the tedium with Evelyn is wrapped up, James and Donna share another beautiful moment. I have to admit being something of a romantic here, because this sequence, like the one with Donna before, got to me. It's a beautiful moment where James and Donna are lying on the grass getting ready for a picnic. The music is extraordinary, so much has gone on between them. It's just a powerful segment for both of them and the perfect natural beauty of their surroundings. And love is still standing unchallenged between them despite all the horrible things that have happened. James is still a rebel, still a wild man trying to tame his heart, and he declares his intention to leave once again. Donna is more sanguine about it now that so much has happened. She wants to give him his space and let him work out everything he needs to do to become well again. If the show continued, we might have seen them get back together. James presumably would have returned, maybe they would have continued their relationship, who knows. Like so many things in high school, their emotions in relationship were overwhelmingly powerful and doomed by circumstance not to last. It burned incredibly hot with the love that only an inexperienced young person feeling these things for the first time can feel, and then faded away. Usually I don't like the show as much when it's a bright, sunny, cheerful day, but this moment is perfect. However, there is still a logical problem with it. James is gone. For good. After this brief appearance in episode 23, James is out of the show. There's no good reason for any of this to have happened. James, if we remember all the way back to the first season, is a bookhouse boy. That's the perfect excuse to give him all kinds of things to do. He could be sent on secret missions for Agent Cooper or given loads of research or anything really to stop Wyndham Earle. They could have ramped everything up with James and made him a fundamental part of the main storyline. But instead they kicked him off into some sort of irrelevant side area. He's packed off into his own silly side missions with no importance to anything and leaves us twisting. If James had taken a more active part in helping the Bookhouse Boys, he would have been involved directly in the show and given a chance to fill in Donna with his missions. Perfect, but instead he's trundled off the show and kicked out just when it was starting to get good again. They even have the nerve to introduce a Bookhouse Boy named Cappy. Who the hell is Cappy? What kind of a name is Cappy? Why the heck did they introduce a new character in the same type of role for an episode or two when an established main character could easily have filled that role? I mean, I don't know if the actor had any reason to leave the show at the time, and that's why they were doing this, but just purely in terms of in-world, it's crazy. Unfortunately, that's the end of James's journey in the original Twin Peaks. Fortunately, he's back for the third season, so we're going to see more of him. Donna Hayward remains a character until the end of the series. Just as she was almost killed by Bob, Donna comes very close to evil without knowing it yet again. The new villain of the show, Wyndham Earle, begins to stalk several beautiful women in town. He follows Donna to her home in disguise and insinuates himself into her life. These scenes are creepy and unsettling because of how close Donna gets to a twisted monster. But in these scenes, Donna is a passive target of a killer. She can't really do anything to resist this or to stop him in any way. All the girls have their own storylines going on around at this time, and it doesn't seem to have that much of an effect on their lives. Even after Donna meets Wyndham Earle, she only sees the sheriff the following day as if it's not really much of a concern. Donna, Audrey, and Shelley were never in any real danger anyway. They're all ignored by Earle in the end. It's just there to make Earle creepier, I suppose, and it does a good job of that. The real story that Donna finds herself in during all of this time is not fantastic. It's another potboiler straight from soap opera land plot about finding out who her real father is. Donna's inquisitiveness gets her involved through the show in multiple issues and events. It's still present at the end of the series, but focused on a rather trivial subject. She begins to notice that her mother has contact with local businessman Benjamin Horne, including secret meetings in Horne's office and exchanges of flowers and love letters. It seems that Benjamin was friends with Will and Eileen Hayward many years ago, or perhaps more than friends with Eileen, whom he had some kind of sexual relationship with. Donna becomes increasingly frustrated with her parents and demands to know the truth, insisting like Benjamin on digging up the past and hurting everyone. Ben seems to be Donna's father, not that that means much anyway because Doc Hayward raised her from birth. The climax of this sequence in the end of Season 2 is memorably weird and violent, but aside from that it's a bit of a time waster. Not terribly interesting compared to the other stuff going on in the town. Donna began the show sobbing uncontrollably in class during the pilot, and that's how she ends. That's the last image we have of her face in the series, oddly enough. The James and Donna plotline is one of the best on the show. It may seem easy to say that this silly teenage romance is nonsense and not an important part of life, but there's a kind of magic there that inspires all of us about lost dreams and the wonders of childhood. And that last little moment of peace just before tackling the world and its problems, the in-between world between childhood and adulthood when love is fresh and a roaring pleasure, when emotions burn the hardest and you need a partner against the world. It's easy to poke holes in the couple's time together. For instance, they really came from different worlds. James is a poor kid who likes motorcycles and working at his uncle's gas station. Well, Donna is from a proper upper-middle-class family that goes to church every Sunday, holds dinner parties with poetry and piano playing. She's a top student and likely to be going to a great university when she graduates. James, as Laura and Donna mock him for, is not considered particularly bright. Their future does not seem like it would include them together. But that's spoiling things. It wouldn't be a dreamy 50s high school romance if we thought about the logistics too much. Their relationship is one of the foundations of the show for me, and one of the sweetest, most touching things about the series. To wrap things up, the James-Donna relationship and their time investigating was absolutely magical. I loved everything about it. I loved seeing their romance blossom and the troubles it went through and how they overcame them. I loved them working together. It just seems so incredibly naive and innocent to think that they were the ones that loved Laura and they have to go out and save her and help her. They have to be the ones to solve the mystery of her murder because no one else loved them like they did. I love all the secrets they go through, the cutesy 50s dating things that they do. It's absolutely wonderful to behold. It's incredibly charming, and it's part of the good side of Twin Peaks. There's a lot of murder and violence and horror going on all around, but during the daytime, before the spirits come out to play, it's an absolutely heavenly place. I think we all need a little bit of that naive teenage energy somehow, where it's just me and you against the world and we're going to fight everything and our love will take over and conquer all. It's an absolutely wonderful moment. I love these characters. I love this show. I love their entire sequence. It's absolutely great.
When I saw you tonight, I knew exactly what I believed.
Did you?
It's like if we could put our hearts together and just keep them that way forever, we'd be safe no matter what.
You and me?
From now on.